It is a beautiful Monday, and we, of course, are starting our live Q&A, and it is April 25th, and we are being purposeful about talking about meaning and message. And Miss Haley is going to pull up a fun share. As you know, we start off every Monday that we are available with the 5 to 10 minutes about a subject, and then we open it up to questions. And I know a few people already have a few questions. As we'll dive into, yet I wanted to start laying out some groundwork for what we're going to be covering in the next few weeks. So as you know, it's open Q&A after we start through this material. First slide, Ms. Haley. Thank you so much. So, I thought it'd be appropriate to give you a definition that would seem unique, yet I'm sure you probably didn't realize that, even the dictionary has a definition. Ironically, the Webster's Dictionary has a definition and a multitude of definitions. So I thought as I read through this, and I remember ironically, even as a child, thinking who decided A was A and Z was Z and all the other graphic details in between. And there's a whole bunch of history to it, all kinds of good stuff, but they narrowed it into these 4 definitions for Webster's online definition. And for those of you that can see the visual, you can read along. For those who will be listening as they're driving or whatever, as we put this into the recording of the Facebook group, a reference source in print or electronic form containing words used usually alphabetically arranged along with information about their forms, pronunciations, functions, etymologies, meanings, and sonatic and idiomatic uses. Don't you love that they got all those different definitions into that one definition? Because every one of those words have different definitions, right? A reference book listed alphabetically terms or names important to a particular subject or activity, along with the discussion of their meanings and applications. Again, a whole bunch of definitions and meanings. Everybody seeing where I'm going with the definition of a dictionary. Even the dictionary has a multitude of perceptions to the definition. So everything that we have in our mind has a perception and a story and a meaning and a definition. And each of us, Richard, who is one of our coaches, literally created a book of his definitions of what he defined each word as for his purpose. So again, another reference book lists alphabetically the words of one language, showing their meanings and translations in other languages and so on. So let's move to the next slide. We have a meaning in what we call our vision, which is to guide and experience light bulb moments powered by the One Light Ahead community. That is all of you and many others. We have a mission. Our mission is to guide the light bulb moments through leadership coaching to inspire transformation and to empower our clients to lead and live unlayered. These are the meanings that we gave to our vision and mission. These are the messages that we have given. Each of you have your own, ideally, and ideally they're documented. The next one, please. Now, I've set you up to be prepared to have a whole conversation around meaning and message. We're going to start with meaning. This is, we have a program called Self-Leadership 123. It is one of our newest tools. I am now officially Axiogenics certified. Some of you have been through the first introductions of it, some of you have not. And this is a neuroaxiology brain science, to shorten the form. And it basically helps us understand how we give each thing meaning, how we determine the values that we assign to things. And this visual is a beautiful way of looking at it. Something will happen, and then our brain will create the meaning-making machine and choose an action or react based off a habit. And we will either have success or failure, or we will appreciate the results. This visual has a whole depth of detail to it. I'm just giving you the perception to start planting the seed, because our brains will choose our meaning and our message based off of how we define our filters that we run it through. And the way I talked about in our Possibility Monday video is we all have what we call a reticular activator system that has decided what we are looking for and how we get things on our radar. Again, some future conversations. But one of the things we started talking about is that concept of recipes or formulas. And every business, one of the amazing individuals I've met along the way took all my formulas and narrowed it down to this formula. The event plus the response will equal an outcome. And we can use this formula in any type of meeting. So I have a experience of, I want to fill up a program. This is my event. If my response is, I just wait and see if somebody's going to knock on my door, what outcome do you think I'm going to have? Not a whole lot of people, right?
Not a lot of outcome.
Not a lot of outcome, right? And so our opportunity, and more often than not, in our meaning making machine, we get to decide how we look at this formula. What is our outcome? Which one are we looking at first? The event, the response, or the outcome? And it really does narrow into a very simple formula. And I could have this whole definition in a multitude of ways in this conversation. So I think that was, we have one more slide on that, correct? So what does that message mean? What will the message provide? Who will create their meaning, and when will it make the impact? So one of the events that I chose to do is to write a book. By the way, anybody that's written a book, that isn't any easy feat. Ironically, a gentleman, a friend of mine that I went through another training through, had made a post this weekend, and he was in the middle of writing his book, and he's getting all the editing feedback back. And he's disappointed that he put something out there, and now all the people are telling him all the things he did wrong. And he's like, this is so debilitating, April. And he made a LinkedIn post about it. And he literally says, and I commented, made a comment, and he commented back, and he's like, gosh, doesn't it make you want to give up? And out of curiosity, how many know that we got a multitude of feedback on our book, by the way? A multitude of feedback. And by the way, we're in the middle of edits on our book because of all that amazing, great feedback. And we invested in getting it updated to address all the great feedback. Yet here's the exciting thing, that book's still out there. It's still impacting lives. I hear about it all the time. We are making it, everybody has a different experience. Somebody said to me recently, I got to the whole perspective of the book and I put it down. Guess how often I hear about that? And what I've discovered is that what they found is that they didn't want to do the work, so they put it down. Because at that point, they get a choice to do the exercise. I hear many people say, I didn't get much coaching out of it. Out of curiosity, did you do the exercises? Well, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. Okay, so is there an opportunity? One of the things we discussed in our LinkedIn conversation this weekend is that I call myself a ridiculous weeble. And one of my friends would say to you that I'm kind of one of those little boxers that just gets beat up all. And I saw the preview for the movie for Muhammad Ali. That looked really intriguing. My point being is that we put out a message. It has meaning to everybody differently. Everybody gets to decide what their meaning is. And the more feedback we took, we were able to help start adjusting all the different perceptions and verify we answer as many questions as possible. Is it possible, even after we're done editing and all our beta readers read, that somebody's going to come back and find something we missed again? Mm-hmm. Absolutely possible. Is it ever going to be perfect? Is it going to fulfill the purpose? It's going to.
It'll be perfect for somebody.
Exactly. And it already is creating results. We've created an amazing tool that is already creating results, that is already impacting lives. We've heard it over and over again. So we get to decide, what does the message mean? What's the meaning? And this is going to be an open discussion for a few weeks. And we're going to dig deeper every week. I'm going to, Haley, there's one last slide, I believe. What's it mean to you? Whatever you want to ask, whatever questions you want, is now your turn. And you can go ahead and drop down the slideshow. Who's first?
I'm not sure what the question is.
I love that response. So the question could be, depending on how you receive that, it could be, what is the message and meaning to you? It could be, how are you aware of your meaning making machine? It depends on what resonated for you and what we've shared.
Right. So what I find is my meaning making machine oftentimes is not a reflection of the people I'm speaking to.
What a powerful statement. Say more, please.
Right. And so when speaking with people, and I speak with a lot of people, I have to be very careful about how I present things and using words that are more generally accepted or generally understood. Because in more like in, I guess, business specific words or jargon, a lot of people have a bit of information and they've created their own story as to what that is. And oftentimes it's not accurate.
100%.
And then you spend a lot of time as the conversation unfolds defining what that was. And then you're working against them because their understanding was different than what I was trying to say. And it creates a little bit of tension that's unnecessary.
I just recorded a podcast all about that.
And I didn't see it.
No, it's not even out yet. I literally recorded it today. And the exciting thing is as long as it moves and transitions, that was Mr. J. Papasan that I just recorded today. So it was amazing. And it was a very powerful conversation about being courageous in our conversations and getting clarified about how we're communicating.
So what I'm finding is, and I'm working with a group of older people. I mean, old, like a lady in her mid 70s that's in the middle of a divorce, an 82-year-old lady that's trying to move back to the area. And so I'm just, the old saying, the KISS method, keep it simple, use words that everybody understands. And I even find myself using words that I would like use in talking or conversing with my father, being 82 years old. So I use it like a whole different set of vocabulary when I'm talking with older people, but just keeping it simple and checking for understanding every other sentence to make sure we're still on the same page.
In alignment. Love that. Steve,
Yeah.
Rep, you have a thought?
No, not really. I'm just looking at this from my own perspective and my own paradigm, and just repeating in my head the same issue. With me, it goes beyond knowing what to do and actually doing it. I still run into the same frustration that I know what I'm supposed to be doing, but I often find myself taking the other path, bad habits, and getting myself in the same position of failure and something, and not just specific, where and not even necessarily failure, just not nearly as successful as I should be, whether it's a personal interaction that I think about later that I didn't go into it 100% present.
And that's the truth. So Stephen and Steve, is there any other questions you wanted to open up to the group today? Because I know there's a couple others coming. And Steve, great connection back to the meaning making machine and how we can fall into that reaction side that you saw, and a great observation of bringing that back in. Thank you. Is there any other questions you two had? Not yet? Okay. All right. Becky and Haley, good at the moment? I'm going to pick on Dallas next. He gave me permission, or Richard. Richard, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm a little troubled by. I'll think out loud here.
Please.
That to use a famous line, words have meanings.
Truth.
We can interpret things differently, what its import is to us. But there's no way in the dictionary that black turns to white, or white turns to black, or up turns to down. So there are certain meanings that are fact-based.
Mhm.
But I think the opportunity is, what do we take out of it? And that's different from what it actually means or what the words mean. It's where do we find the value in it? And because I found on occasion, I'll take value out of something that seems completely obscure, right? And even in reading your book, there are things that I didn't identify with because I had no basis in reality. Say, well, yeah, I had that experience, and I don't know, but I could take value out of it by interweaving it with experiences I have had.
Mhm.
So I guess where I'm mentally struggling at the moment is, I don't think that every word has a precise and one and only meaning, but I do think that words do have certain meanings, and so you can't, like I say, you can't turn black into white or up into down, but you can look at the words and draw value out of it.
So go ahead, Stephen.
Perspective. If you're talking to somebody while you're standing up and they're laying on their back, up and down are going to be different.
It's true.
Indeed.
That is a
So-
way of perspective.
So in with that, I found that logic doesn't play a part in this.
Hmm.
And you have to like put logic aside, because the only thing that's real at that moment is the conversation that you're having at that moment. And not everybody sees black as black. And even though you and I and everyone in this room might say, when I look up, that's up, and when I look down, that's down, and water always falls down, we may have that understanding, but not everybody does, as illogical and irrational as it may be. And our job, or my job, is to quickly pick up on that and either work around it or use it in the conversation to help bring the conversation to where I need to bring it. If that makes sense.
So Stephen, there is a lot you said there, and I think it will fall into our next conversation. And Richard, also, I deeply appreciate, and every one of you, is the gift of all the perceptions you're all bringing to the table. Because even as we were talking about, Steve Rep mentioned in the how we can fall into our habits and our reactions and not have as high of success if we would have been able to be fully present, right? And even in that aspect, Richard, as you said, if I see black as black, now in the real estate arena, gray is a whole lot of fun, right? And I say that because even in any arena as an attorney, it goes back to perceptions, right? The law is the law, but depending on which judge you have, depends on which way they perceive the evidence confirms the law, right? And some of it will be and we could get in the weeds on all these specifics of the definition. The purpose of, although there is going to be, again, going back to bringing up the dictionary from the beginning, is Webster's has become an authority on the definitions. Now there are others, but you mentioned a dictionary, most people will have the brand of Webster because that was many grew up with, right? Now Google is a definition, Google everything. Did I Google it today? It's now a verb. Google is a company that's now a verb. So going back into what you had asked about how do I identify and gain value, the purpose of this message, the purpose of even asking these conversations is clarifying, is what I'm doing on a daily basis aligning with my message and my meaning? And I'm going to keep digging into that a little bit further as we move along. Does that help, Richard?
A little, I'm still processing, as they say.
And I think it'll be a lot of fun to dive into the next conversation to give some perspective with it. So Dallas, are you willing and ready?
I think so. I don't know. I feel like I've prepared notes for an entire different conversation than
And
whatever
that's
this
okay,
is.
because we
Is
are,
it?
it's totally okay. Because believe it or not, the gift of building bridges is meeting you where you are and then giving you the ability to see how it all shows up in the conversation we're having today. So let's meet you where you are. You get to bring whatever question you bring. Now you got to come off mute though.
Yeah, I was tired of holding space bar. So I don't really know where to even jump into this. Other than just kind of being very transparent and very open and just saying, hey, this is what my week looked like last week. And this is kind of what I took from it. And I'm working with some other mentors of mine that are showing me some different ideas about energy and how things happen outside of just whatever I'm able to put the effort for it towards, right? So things are happening in my world that I have either put a lot of effort towards or not a lot of effort towards, and they're happening anyway. So it sounds kind of woo-woo or spiritual, but there are things that are going on around us that we just don't have the senses for. And one of these things is this law of resonance and conformity. So what I've noticed this week in my business, just trying to tie all this in, is that on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, when I am here in the shop, I have an entire different energy about the shop. Tuesdays and Thursdays have been my weakest days because I've not been here, and I've been trying to take days off and that type of thing. So this idea of resonance, I'm coming in and I feel like when I getting phone calls, those conversations, that phone call, that phone ring is an opportunity for me to help someone. And I feel like then on Tuesdays and Thursdays when I'm not here, I've got some staff that are dealing with just outside worldly stuff. They're forcing themselves into work, if that makes sense. Where I'm fired up to be here, I'm being pulled through my day, right? So when the phone rings for them, maybe it's more of like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm having to do as a job. Now it's a task that I necessarily have to get done. It's a chore. And that kind of resonance is blocking the ability for more, even the opportunity for more customers to come in the door. To where when me some of my newer employees, man, we're in here, we're fired up. The phone rings and we're like, oh, great, this is that opportunity. And then we're answering the phone, we're able to serve that person. And then it turns into a walk-in. That walk-in, we're able to do the same thing for. We're hey, how can I help you today? And that begets another one. And it's a crazy momentum that happens outside of anything that I can do in marketing or branding or booking appointments. It's happening outside of my control of just effort that I can put into the business, right? So I guess the question that I kind of posed to April last night was, we have all these KPIs for performance, right? How good you are at fixing repairs and how many are coming back and how much revenue you're doing, but I don't have any KPIs for emotional stability. Like, so where my question then was, what are some ideas or some questions that I can lean real heavy and on the empathy side of, hey, what's going on Tuesdays here? What how can we get into more of a service-minded attitude and be fired up to be at work? Because if I can fix the emotional side of things, then those other performance indicators are going to just be a byproduct. They're just going to fix themselves. Is that kind of making sense?
Makes lots of sense. So Dallas, 2 definitions to clarify. How do you define your personal definition of resonance and conformity? How do you define that?
For me, it is a universal law that is a primary law, and it supersedes that law of effort and reward. So conformity for me is who you're around. It's environment. Environment will eat will for lunch every day of the week. So that's a lot of it. resonance. It's a frequency, it's a vibrational state that man, if you are up against a glass ceiling, and the quickest way to get through that glass ceiling is to hang out with people that are above that glass ceiling already. It's almost even through osmosis that just your I don't know, like I say, it's woo, spiritual, whatever it is that vibrational state, that frequency that you are, if you are able to emit that with more frequency, more often, and like I say, the byproducts of what the results are, the outcomes in your life are going to raise themselves. It's just, like I say, it's a byproduct of just being around the right people.
So Dallas, are you open for questions from the group before I give you some thoughts
Yeah, sure.
or feedback?
Just kind of taking notes, and thanks for meeting me where I'm at. Like I said, I prepared for a totally different conversation. So.
Well, believe it or not, they're aligned, because there's an immense amount of meaning you already have shared with us, and an immense amount of message that you've shared. Before I comment on that, though, I'm going to let everybody else give some thoughts. Is that okay?
Yeah, you're asking me. Yes, absolutely. That's what we're here for.
All right.
Sure.
So Richard, were you able to, Richard or Stephen or Steve, and or Becky and Haley, is there any questions or thoughts you have before I deep dive on the rest of that? Stephen.
I guess it's more of a thought. I know, Dallas, you were preparing the last time I saw you to open a second store. Did you open your store?
Oh, well, this is awesome. I think opening one location is aiming too close in. I think I'm going to skip opening one and just open two. I'm going through financing this week. There's an opportunity with another apartment. It's kind of a industry complex, and they're offering like 6 months free rent. So I might as well do both, I think. And then I can just onboard a whole bunch of people, the ones I like. The systems in place that are going to work, and if I can do it one place, it's going to be just as easy to do it at another, and that way the people that I have now can all go full time and take on training roles, and everybody's really fired up about that, about the prospect of that. So today's been just one thing after another from hour to hour here. It's changing on the fly because they're wanting to sell the space from underneath me. They're like, can you meet it today? And I'm like, okay, cool. So that's why I was like 4 minutes later, I was looking across town from seeing the location. It's going to take a lot of work, but if I get it for the right price, then it's a no-brainer. I want to have the space for everybody to grow into. So I mean, it's kind of a window closed, a door closed there, Steve, Stephen, but a window's kind of opened at the same time.
Well, this is something that somebody told me a long time ago, is that employees will never treat your business the way the owner treats his business.
I don't pay them like the owner gets paid either, so I can't really expect that.
Right, and they don't own it, and so I guess
it's not too much to ask for that energy, right? Like if they don't come in and they're looking for that opportunity to help, I don't feel like I really want to pay them.
Well, there's that too. So you're looking for something very specific. You're looking for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so what I would submit that you probably won't find you, but to discover what you actually need to make the business work is a whole different thing. You don't need, of course, I'd love to have 10 of you. I think it'd be great. 10 of you could change the world in a heartbeat. However, I don't know that you're going to find another you. So, like I said, I would look
parts
at
of me. Here's the tech part of me. Here's the front counter part of me. Here's like, just put this on paper and do some SOPs part of me. Like, let's do all that out there. That's exactly, yeah. Let's subdivide me out, and then I'll hire off all these hats. I love it. Thank you for the compliment, by the way.
Well,
Lots of
Dallas,
words
there's-
split up to there, Stephen.
Dallas, there are rubrics and there are matrix that you can follow that will help you to identify the characteristics of people that you want to work for you.
Mhm.
And so if you're able to identify what those are, you can, I know there's one for real estate. And I know April has some resources as well, but you can actually, you pay a small fee, you have them take an assessment, and they either fit in the box or they don't. Because you'll never turn a duck into a swan, no matter how much training you do.
Yeah, it's easier to give birth than raise the dead. I got it.
Right.
Absolutely.
That's a way of putting it. Okay, so Stephen, thank you for the comment. Richard?
Yeah, Dallas, through years of operating a business, I've had a lot of different employees. And probably the resounding message is I can never predict 100% how they're going to perform. And the second part is, just as you said when you addressed April about sort of you were planning for a different question, is I think you need to meet your employee where they are.
Mhm.
And so it really is a matter of communicating with the employee, finding out what's important to them and letting them know what's important to you so that you can actually get the most out of them and they can get the most out of you. It's not just a paycheck that they're looking for. They're looking for a level of satisfaction. I mean, the single biggest thing in employment now is, how do I get somebody to be inspired? Just as you said, how do I get them to be inspired like I am? And I don't think just as Stephen said, I don't think you can expect them to be as inspired as you are because they're not the owner. But if you can meet them where they are and find out what it is they do feel inspired about, then you can communicate with them on that level and they'll be successful and you'll be successful.
And Richard, did you pick up the meaning and message in the conversation? Or
Awesome.
are you waiting for me to share on that?
I'm waiting.
I figured. Steve Rapp.
Thanks, Richard. That was great advice. What are their passions? And then I can hold them to that. Hey, is this action and is this behavior getting you further away from that goal or that passion of yours, or is it getting you closer? If you were to perform like you performed on Thursday 1,000 times in a row, are you closer to your goal? Or are you further away? And perfect.
I'd recontextualize that just a little bit and not say hold them to it, but to continue to empower them. I'm doing this as much for you as I am for me. Yes, I get a benefit out of it, but if you do that 1,000 times, think how much better off you will be. Not how much better off I'll be or the business be. How much better off will you be? Right.
I want to grow and build people here. That's the idea.
Yeah.
Well, and Dallas, that takes a commitment. So I'm going to talk a couple of things about that in a minute. Steve Rapp, do you have any questions or thoughts?
No, I'm feeling this too, as I spoke about week before last. So I hear you, man.
So Steve Rapp is relating and appreciating your question, Dallas. Becky, any questions or thoughts?
I guess I want to go back to Dallas when you talked about Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday was one vibe, and then Tuesday, Thursday was a different vibe.
Sure.
Are they the same people every day, or is it a different group on Tuesday and Thursday?
Yeah, with Tuesdays and Thursdays, I'm not here on those days at all. And then I've got me.
Oh, he got a phone call at the same time, so that's why.
Okay.
Yeah, great question. So the vibe is because
So it changes when he's not there.
Correct. Yeah. Sorry about that, by the way. Yeah, that's
okay.
exactly the case. And even sometimes on those Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursday, or Tuesday, on every other day that I am here, I'm even having to kind of force a little bit of my attitude into the environment a little bit as well, because some of those employees do overlap. But most of the time, Tuesdays and Thursdays are a specific group, and then I've got my specific groups on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday as well.
So where are you
Correct.
getting your feedback on the differences?
I've actually got one that actually likes to text me back and forth about how everything's going during the shop day that day.
Gotcha.
So you're hearing about it and you're not there. Okay.
Correct.
Uh,
Correct.
Hey, Becky, any other questions or thoughts? Good.
I'm good for now. Yeah.
Haley, any questions or thoughts?
I think what I wanted to say was in line with what Richard and Stephen had been saying about being willing to grow them. So that means that as they come in the door, they might not fit that checklist right away, because one of your goals is to be able to grow them. So if they came in the door fitting everything on your checklist, you wouldn't be able to do that in the first place. So
Right.
Deciding what is essential for you. And I think willingness to serve and that as a main motivator is probably going to be high on your priority list in hiring, because when it all boils down, skill levels and things can be trained, but it's really hard to train someone to want to serve. So I would probably prioritize that first, and then maybe make a list of like, these are absolute no-nos, and then be willing to invest and work on your team. And then in that way too, it's like you're building your own family, and then the whole tone of your training is consistent throughout your team, and you're building them all up together instead of everyone coming in, with totally unique perspectives that don't really have any like company culture as part of their beliefs, their core beliefs.
Well, and Haley, will you speak to the journey that you've seen in your own journey? Because one of the things I've given my team permission is they have no problems being blunt with me, and it's a whole journey to go through and to meet them where they're at and move them into the best place that we can serve them. So Haley, is there anything that's coming to mind or heart that you would want to share in that journey?
I think April and I we operate very differently. And so there are huge blessings in those differences. And we work really well to kind of pick one another up, in the areas that we're lacking. And so I think it would really be a shame, because my personality, I would probably want to make a checklist of this is the perfect person to hire. And I would probably make that checklist look a lot like me. How I would miss out on this person with these perspectives that I need for a more full culture and a more full like outlook and worldview and all those things. So one thing that I totally appreciate, and like I'll keep this with me forever, was what April has built in her culture, not just like in One Light Ahead, but also in our coaching and the way that we coach our teams. And every member of the team has immense value. And as your leader, as the visionary, it is your responsibility to figure out the strengths of each of your team members and build those up, but also call them out when you see, hey, this is an area that you really could improve in, or so being open, but then also listening to their perspective about how your leadership is affecting them, and being very humble about that, and just showing up without an agenda sometimes of, hey, let me know how I'm doing. Let me know how you're feeling. And then, really taking it to heart, not just brushing it aside, and be appreciative, because a lot of times that your team members will see things that you just miss because you're, 15,000 feet above most of the time, and they're down there in the weeds. So that's something that I think April does magnificently. She is a master at that.
And I have many other areas of growth in that humble side. And this is why we are blessed with all of our different partnerships, or our opportunity to grow each other, because Haley has given me permission from day one to grow her, but I've given Haley permission to grow me. And same with Becky, and even our clients, all of our clients know that we're growing with them. So Dallas, are you ready for some feedback on all of the connection?
So hold on, let me pull up a notepad real fast.
It's like, wait, I want to take notes. And hey, thanks for the way that you shared all that, because the gift of collaboration is the ability for all of us to say, okay, and I've learned the gift that I can do for Haley is say, okay, here's everything. I'm just going to blurt. Don't take any meaning into this until I have a chance. And I just need to get it out so we can have a conversation and figure out what does it mean. And she knows it doesn't have to be done today. And so when Stephen, when you said stop looking for you, Haley's not me. But the gift that I've learned is that there are people that have shared values. Haley and I share the same value. Becky and I share the same value. We align on the willingness to be in service. We align in the willingness to honor our faith and to honor who we serve and honor all the pieces of the puzzle. And that has never been doubted. So Dallas, to come back to a couple of things you said. When you talked about resonance and you talked about conformity, you said in universal law, an effort and reward. And Stephen DeSena said your opportunity is to verify what is those things that you're going to create as Haley mentioned, that company culture. Who creates the company culture, by the way? Each of the leaders. At the end of the day, and by the way, is that conforming all the time? The company culture is conforming all the time based off of where you are. So when you're a brand new business, your culture is just being developed. If you're a business that is one person going to 15 person or 5 people going to 15 person, it's going to change again. And so your opportunity is to verify what is going to stay the same and what is going to change. What, as Haley mentioned earlier, what are, I think a couple of people mentioned, what are the absolute no's and what are the absolute yes, you've got some authority to make this decision on your own.
Is that what I need to necessarily just put pen to paper on and just write down values? So the notes so far are just shared values over performance. And I'm totally good with that. Like I would, how trustworthy are you? Are you able to come in and be service minded? And everything else can be taught. Like I just need them in the right mindset to do what we do down here.
Well, and Dallas, it comes back to, I mean, there's a couple of things that you want to back up for just a second. You said in the above all, in your perspective, there's a couple of things as a coach, I need to slow down for just a minute and say, well, if I open up one, I might as well open up 2 at the same time. Do you even have a formula for your opening?
Formula? I had no idea. I don't even know what the formula, I guess so. Like I was just going to borrow a couple of screens from down here, and it was going to coach one here, and I was just going to go and open one. It's like I did this one. I was just I did it once. I could do it 2 more times. I feel like I don't know. I only get like a 300. Okay, so here's a great analogy, and this is how I don't want to feel like that I'm just winging it, because I feel like I've got some systems in place. I know how to fix cell phones, and I know how to teach others how to do it. So my perspective on this is just like, it's okay. I'm 15 miles from the house and it's late at night and I'm jumping in my car and I'm like, oh, I turn my lights on, and since I can't see my house, I'm just not going to go. No, I'm going to jump in the car, and as I go around the corner, I'm going to get 300 feet worth of vision, and then I'll get 300 more feet. And I'll just keep solving problems as they come up. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being completely I feel like I can handle the adversity. And so I'm ready to dive in and just let's go. So I don't know.
Doesn't she? I said, Haley loves that about me. Right. Did you see the look on her face when I said that?
See, I don't have one of those.
Well, that's the whole point, Dallas, is that the gift is, yes, you're 100% right. Could you deal with adversity? I've been doing it for 13 years. And the conversation I just had with somebody today is, and Richard, I don't know how many years you all been doing this, but every one of us that has ran a business in any form or fashion has been doing it by luck of the draw, if you will. And that's what you're saying. I'm just going to keep flashing the light and figure out, okay, I opened one already. What's the difference of opening 2 or 3 more, right? The difference is the overhead of 2 or 3 more. The difference is the spread out of one individual, and Richard and then Stephen.
Yeah, so I would pick up on what April said and add, the first one you open is your pilot. And you want to make your mistakes there and don't make mistakes on multiple, right? You need to, because you're going to make mistakes. So you want to make the mistakes where they're the least costly to you. And then in that regard, I think that, and I'm by no means terrific at this, but the most important thing is that your employees have clear expectations. They know what it is that you want. They know what they're required to do. And April could tell you that I've spent probably 3 years now working with a process engineer to map out every single stinking little minute detail that needs to happen in my practice, from send this message to this person on this particular cause of action. So they know, and you know, and people are list oriented, so they can get check off and say, yeah, I did that, I did that, I did that. And they feel a sense of success out of it. And you feel empowered because you've specified what needs to happen and they've done it. And so if you want to foster a positive attitude, I'd say the most important thing there is to make sure they feel successful. Right? And that you do by setting expectations that they can meet.
What do you mean by formula? I don't know. Formula. Now I'm all worried because I don't have a formula to open up 2 more stores.
Hold on.
How about why don't we call it a process?
There you go. See, so I got
Yeah,
processes. I got processes for days.
Well, if you're going to continue to repeat any part of your business over and over again, there should be a system in place to do it the same way every time. That way, you know, if you need to make adjustments, you know where that baseline is and how to make the little tweaks without
Perfect.
causing overhead and expenditures that are unnecessary. I
Mr.
mean, if your plan is to continue to open stores, then job one really should be just looking at it. I mean, you don't have to, you know, it doesn't have to be a daunting task. Just sit down and pencil out what you did to open the first one, and then just expand on that as you go through the everyday process of building the company. Because if your plan is to build 50 of these, it's going to be more and more valuable every time.
Absolutely.
You're talking to yourself, right, Mr. Rep?
Oh yeah.
Just checking.
Where are you getting your employees?
What? Say that again?
Dallas, where are you getting your employees from?
Man, I've got a stack of resumes. People just walk in and be like, dude, let me fix cell phones for you. Or do you have any job openings? Like, I've got a stack. So it's simple. And I can also just put on ads on Facebook, or I could throw some up real quick, and I think I can get a few in the door. I don't know. I'm not really even started interviewing yet. Like I said, I've just been taking pictures of new locations and filling out all the financial statements and paperwork for the capital.
Is your plan to have a manager at each store, or a mid-level manager, so you're not running around yourself? I mean, what's your
Eventually I'd like to have a whole C-suite team. So April's seen kind of the 1 and 3 and 7 and 10 year kind of ideas of where I want to be. Having that would be probably.
Stephen, you interrupted.
Well, a suggestion anyway. A suggestion is, in this process, you know, people typically, you know, hire a bunch of employees for the stores, and then at some point down the road, I'm going to need that manager person to manage them. But it almost makes more sense to find that person now, and you may not, but at least start the search now, because the quicker you get somebody plugged into that position and get them some feeling of ownership, the quicker you can grow the company. Balance, of course, with the overhead it creates, but
I don't want to hire that position from within. I've got a couple guys that are really wanting to do that.
So, Stephen DeSena, did you have one more question? Steve Rep, thank you for your input. Mr. DeSena, did you have one more comment before we start to wrap up?
I just wanted to remind Dallas that he's only one guy. And I remember listening to Dallas months ago or a year ago when he was figuring out that he was just one guy. He thought he was three when he had one store. And I'm just wondering if he has closed his eyes long enough to view the nightmare of what he would look like trying to control all three stores by himself.
Mhm.
Because that's not a dream, that's a nightmare. And you may survive it, but you won't be the same person at the end of it.
That's the reason for the Q&A today. Is, man, if I can hone in, like I'm having troubles just not being at the shop on Tuesdays and Thursdays each week, keeping the same energy levels that I'm expecting to have at the shop. So that's hence the question is, what are the KPIs, or what are the questions, or what are the performance indexes that I've got to run every week to make sure that my people are of the right headspace to even come in the door?
But here's an
That's what I
idea.
want.
Here's an idea. Don't tell them when you're coming into the store. Rotate your visit so they have no idea.
Well, see, Brett, that would be one way. At the end of the day, though, whatever we allow, we give permission to.
Right.
And so, and at the end of the day, I have a very wise team, and I get reminded regularly that the more direction that the visionary and detail the visionary gives, the more clarity they have. And the difficulty, and I'm sure nobody in this room can relate, we want everybody to be able to read our mind. We want everybody to be able to create their own job descriptions, their own energy level, their own, etc. That's not their job. Our job as the visionary, as the leader, and Steve, I think that was a great recommendation, is to find the person, build up the person so they start hiring their teams for each of their locations, which we talked about before, Dallas. And
yes, I got a guy that's wanting to do that. He's already got them spread out. Let me get this guy. Let me get this guy. Let me get this girl from the front. Run it, dude.
Well, then there's some accountability features as the visionary that you get to put in place, which you have all the tools for, if you're willing to do that. Yet, if you don't create the boundaries, you don't create the accountability structure, then you're not inspecting and clarifying they're aligning with your vision. And that's a whole process in itself. And you have another thought, Miss Haley.
I feel like I'm the team member representative of the room, you know.
But a few, yes.
And it really is true. As the visionary, you are determining and defining the meaning and the message and the vision of your business. And it would be unreasonable, it's unfair, and you're going to set yourself up for disappointment if you expect your team to be able to create your vision or even execute your vision without you telling them exactly what it is and your plan to get it done and to make it happen. Unless you're willing to spend 24/7 with, I would even just say one team member who would then become a partner, because then you're building together. You need to be able to define your message so well that you could translate it to someone else. Like Stephen was talking about earlier, he had to learn to change his vocabulary so that everyone could understand his message as intended. And so as the visionary, that should be your main goal. How can I make sure that my message is received as intended by every member of my team so that they're empowered to do the job that I intend for them to do?
No
But it would be
question.
unreasonable to expect that, having not clarified that first.
Well, and no question, and to add on to that, to also have a candid conversation with them about what their vision is, just to make sure that they align. Because, sometimes that short conversation could reveal a lot, and you may just be wasting both of your time, even having them as an employee.
And it sounds like everybody is understanding how this whole came together and why we even started this whole process. Everybody's starting to get the reason. And great wrap up, Miss Haley. This is how we have so much fun, is that, okay, this is the whole point of it. Now we're going to keep digging. that make sense? So everybody on board? So some questions to start thinking about as we go into next week of how we live this out. Is that fair? Okay. Have an amazing week, everyone. Thank you for being present and owning it. We're gonna have some fun with it. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.